but the Cardinals may surprise some people, and that's who we're going to be talking about first here with the Arizona Cardinals. So let's, as we always do, start with some of their free agency additions and subtractions. So they lost really their wide receiver one, if he could ever stay healthy, Marquise Hollywood Browns, over with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Wandale Moore, speedy wide receiver who never really panned out. He's at the Falcons. Offensive tackle DJ Humphries is a free agent, and defensive lineman starter Lakai Fotu is with the Jets. They did make about double the additions here. So you got some starters on defense, and Sean Murphy-Bunting coming over from the Bucs. I believe actually he was at the Titans last. Mac Wilson there, linebacker. Wide receiver Zay Jones from Jacksonville. Jonah Williams, Desmond Ridder, who, what are we really adding there? Let's see. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson, and we already talked about Murphy-Bunting. So, yeah, that's some pretty decent turnover there. Lost a couple wide receivers, brought in a few, especially through the draft there. What are your kind of big takeaways with this team looking at Arizona? They were 4-13 last year.
Yeah, so the things that come to mind, to me at least, up front, is they've definitely made steps in the right direction, I will say, on the offensive side. I think adding Marvin Harrison Jr., adding Trey Benson, adding Zay Jones, I think they're getting better offensive weapons. But what happens on that offensive line? Like, okay, they bring in Jonah Williams, but he really didn't do a ton in Cincy. On defense, they didn't really touch that side of the ball on, besides Sean Murphy-Bunting. I guess Mac Wilson as well. But I think they'll be better on offense, especially with Kyler coming back with a full season. I will say that a lot of people have kind of given up on Kyler. I haven't. I think is a stud athlete. Can really spin it. But defensively, I don't know if they've made enough changes to really push their way higher on my board.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I would tend to agree there. Better team is getting better, but I don't know if they're quite there yet for me. Let's talk about some of those. Well, really from the injury front, they, a positive is that they should not be affected too much. By injuries. They are fairly healthy there. So that is the one benefit. The one guy who really is kind of the biggest injury is going to be linebacker Kyzir White. He was the leading tackler for this team last year, so he is an important piece to that puzzle.
And he got injured when? In November?
In November. Yep, November.
And he was the leading tackler?
Yeah. Well, yes.
That says a lot.
Yes. That is you're right. But he's been the leading tackler. Let me see. I'm not sure if he finished the year as the leading tackler, but he definitely.
I mean, but what we're trying to say is Kyzir White is a roaming linebacker that's just a stud.
Yes, he absolutely is a tackling machine. For those of you DGens that do play IDP, obviously you're probably aware with him. Will be likely taking some of his tackle props in the future. But yeah, he had a biceps tear. Typically about a 10 to 11 month injury return to sport timeline. He's working with about 9.5 months. So what are your thoughts about Kyzir White there?
Honestly, I mean, it's an interesting situation there, because like you said, time to week one is just under that 10 to 11 month mark. So will he be ready for week one? Probably not. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of things that we can do to help secure that elbow joint, that shoulder joint, to take some pressure off of the biceps. Like, I think the big thing is how functional he needs to be from a linebacker perspective. Like, he's not a wide receiver, he's not a cornerback, he's not somebody that's needing to go up above his head a ton. In terms of like shoulder function, elbow function, he's not like doing curls out on the 30-yard line. So I mean, I think, like I said, I think he'll probably be a little bit delayed, but not terribly delayed to start the season.
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, there might be some limitations. I think the biggest thing with a biceps tear from, this standpoint would be him initiating contact and kind of hand fighting with an offensive lineman and things like that.
Sure.
So, I'd have a little bit of pause with him just getting right back and getting into that lead role with him being such an important piece. But overall, he should be back within the first, 4 weeks. He's got a good chance to be starting week 1. It's the nine. He's kind of right around that edge of. I'd like to have him have a month more, but I do expect him to be on that part of the field early on in the season. So yeah, and the biggest thing is that's the only real injury concerns they have.
Right,
So
right. No, and that's one that, because he plays such a vital role in their defense, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually plays week 1 just on a snap count. Like, in big situations, or maybe the first couple series, just to kind of get them rolling.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think some other big takeaways here for me. I think defense is gonna need them because I don't think they're very good on paper. Looking at this lineup, they've got some guys and we talked about Kaiser White, we talked about Budda Baker, BJ Ojulari, Zaven Collins, but nobody on this defense scares me. I guess Budda Baker, maybe. I mean, he's a good player, but like, when you're an offensive coordinator, like, who keeps you up at night? There's usually at least 1 or 2 guys on the other side, and
There's
maybe it
not
is
much up front. Their
linebackers are okay. Their cornerbacks are okay. Like, really, it's just Budda Baker is the only one that would give me any type of pause as an offensive coordinator. So, I do think this defense could be bad, but on the flip side, I think this offense can be really fun. I think that, Kyler's got some things to prove. Obviously, he can work around with his legs. I think James Conner is getting absolutely slept on. One of the biggest things I'm asking is, why is James Conner RB27? Why is he behind guys like Jonathan Brooks? Like, tell me 26 running backs are going to have a better fantasy year than James Conner. Like, I feel like he's just a guy who's consistently productive, but consistently forgotten. He had over 1,000 yards on a very bad team with no Kyler Murray. I understand Kyler Murray can run, but he can also open up some holes. He's effective out of the backfield. I don't get that one. That's a head scratcher for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I mean, obviously we're both Pitt guys, and with James Conner being in Pittsburgh for so long with the Panthers and the Steelers, touches us a little bit closer. But at the same time, like, James Conner isn't gonna be that guy to bust one for 80 yards, but at the same time, he's just a grinder over and over and over. And I mean, he's proven, like you said, even last year without Kyler on a really bad team, to still be fairly productive.
Yeah, no, I do like Connor. I also like Trey McBride. I think Trey McBride is from a fantasy perspective, I know he's going high already. He's up there in the kind of top 5, excuse me, fantasy tight ends. And I think he's got a chance to be, 1 or 2. He was super productive, and he only really played half the games. I really liked him last year. He was one of my guys, one of my sleepers. I was fading Zach Ertz coming off an injury and being old. And Trey McBride was the guy who was going to be feasting off that. So he's definitely has an opportunity. I think, Kyler, James Conner, Trey McBride, all those guys in fantasy can.
Can we talk about Maserati Martin?
I was gonna say I am leaving somebody off that maybe you're a little bit higher on. So why don't you lead us in to what are your best bets for this Arizona Cardinals team?
I mean, like Seb said earlier in this episode, I am from Ohio. I have seen Marvin Harrison do his thing over the last 2-3 years in Columbus as a Buckeye.
Lose to Michigan? Is that thing?
I'm
sorry, you're having a bad day. My
bad. They would have won a natty a couple years ago if he wouldn't have got knocked out. But anyway,
as a Florida guy, I would have taken that over Georgia any day. But all right, here we go.
But this dude's a stud. Like, big body. He's super fast in and out of his cuts. He can run basically any route that they designed for him. I think he's going to be one of those star dudes right out of college. I think he's basically, and this is the understatement. I mean, he's been kind of like that lock rookie wide receiver for quite some time, but they do have a couple of other receiving options. Like you said, Trey McBride is a solid receiving option. Michael Wilson, okay. Zay Jones, okay.
Yeah.
But I think Marvin Harrison really shines in this offense. He could be that next Larry Fitzgerald type out there in Arizona. So we'll see. But
my guy hasn't even played a snap. Let's calm
I'm
down with the Larry Fitz.
Hey, who's his pops?
That's hey, you're right. That's a good point. That's
I mean,
pedigree's there. Pedigree's there.
I mean, he's proven on the field that he can live up to the hype a little bit. But well, I mean, we'll see. But I think he is definitely their number one option.
Yeah.
Going into training camp, going into the season, right off the bat. So
cool. Yeah. Is that the one for so what? Maserati Marv over touchdowns?
Oh yeah. Maserati Marv over 6.5 plus 125. Yep.
Plus 120. Grabbing some plus money there. All right. A little high for a rookie, but I agree. I think he's at advertised. He's really good. All right. So, and this actually leads me into one of my bets. Kind of going along with that. I do think, Maserati Marv, Trey McBride, Zay Jones, James Conner. I think this offense can move the ball. I also think they have to because their defense kind of sucks.
They're going to be behind.
Yep, they're going to be behind. So give me Kyler Murray over 21.5 passing touchdowns at a nice plus 105 there. And his, 2 seasons, well, really, rookie year, he had 20. And then when he was healthy, he had 26, 24. Last 2 seasons, he's kind of fallen off, obviously, due to health stuff. But he did come back and look pretty good. He had 10 touchdowns in 8 games. So he was kind of on pace to be able to break that number there. So I like the over passing touchdowns for Kyler Murray there.
No, I like that. Like you said, with McBride, with Marv, with some of the other options that they've added to this roster, I think their offense is going to shine. And that kind of leads into your second one.
Yeah. And then kind of, going along with that, I do like Cardinals team total points over 380.5. So to break that down, that comes out to about 22.4 a game. And I know what you're thinking. I originally was like, that might be a lot for them. What did they put up last year when that atrocious offense, when we saw Clayton Tune and Joshua Dobbs, the astronaut, for a little bit. Yeah. So, they put up 19.4 last year with that atrocious offense, everything going wrong with that team. So I think they're 3 points better on offense. I think that's what it boils down to. We talked about the defensive concerns. I think they can let up some points. They're in a division with some potent offenses. They're going to need to score. So yeah, I like Kyler and that team to get loose. I like this team in fantasy. Again, Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, James Conner, all guys you can get at value, I think. Marvin Harrison, you'll probably have to pay a little bit of a price. So, if you're like Derek and you really believe in him, go get him. I think this team could be fun. Right now we use DraftKings for our odds for the most part. It's just what we both use. I'm not seeing any McBride or James Conner overs. Obviously, I like them. That's something I would play. Also, on Underdog Fantasy, one of our sponsors, promo code SGPN Doc. They have season longs. So, some things that we could potentially talk about there. So, when those come out, I think those are guys that I'll be looking on their overs. Anything else on the Cardinals before we wrap up?
Well, I do kind of sort of sadly have one final best bet.
Oh boy.
Personally, we've talked about how we like the Cardinals offense, but their defense, dude, I just don't see how they're going to win many games. Like I think it's going to be somewhat of a repeat. They're in one of the toughest divisions in football. So I do think the Cardinals go under 6.5 wins, which is plus 125 on DraftKings. So I think they're taking steps, but I think it's mostly due to the division that they're in. You know,
No,
the
I
other
think
3 teams
that's
are just solid teams.
That's completely fair. You know, their win total sitting at 6.5. Like Derek mentioned, you know, it's pretty heavily juiced to the over, -150 over. Plus what 125? Did you say was the under?
Yep.
So yeah, for me, this was like right. I could see it going either way. In that case, if you're going to be in a coin flip, you might as well take the plus money. I could see them getting to 7. I could see them being at 6. I think, Vegas is somewhat right in that way. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this defense did not get better. It arguably got worse. I like the offense, but that does not mean it's going to equate to winning games, right? Fantasy guys and guys that can score points don't always equate to wins. So I don't hate that at all.